Geraldine was born in an entirely different hemisphere to the one she finally settled in. Younger than her brother by a full 5 years, she was a last-ditch attempt on Grace Sturmer's part to have a daughter. Frank wasn't really that fussed. In fact, he was dead set against the idea, but Grace wore him down eventually. After she was born, they named her Gerald and took her home wrapped in a blue blanket. Guess what? That was Geraldine's oldest brother, Harry, fresh home from his first day of school. What? Said Grace. Pink snot. Go outside and play, said Grace. Harry disappeared into the backyard, the darkening sky streaked with grey clouds, the air not quite cold enough that he could see his breath, but getting there. The yard was small, mostly concrete, boxed in between the pebble-dash back wall of the house and the slatted wooden boundary fence. Through the fence, Harry could see the neighbours' patch of lawn and loamy garden beds. He was over in an instant, though the fence was taller than him, and he picked his way through the thorny rose bushes, across the overgrown grass, down the side passage, forced his way around the edge of the rickety wooden gate into the neighbour's front garden, and in a few more steps, onto the road and across into the open fields on the other side. Once the 5-year-old Harry had gotten over the audacity of his escape, he lost all sense of time, so immersed was he in the outdoors. Back on their side of the street, Grace sat down and lit a cigarette, resting an ashtray on her distended belly and leaning back to luxuriate in the smoke. Grace had settled on her method of parenting quite early in the piece, and Harry had learned to disappear soon after he'd worked out what she was about. Geraldine could never remember if she knew these things from Harry's telling of tales, or because she was always there, always watching. One of Geraldine's earliest memories was of Grace from before Geraldine was born. Grace was sitting in a hospital room, just her on a chair, about dead centre. There was one more chair in the room, but no other furnishings. The curtains were drawn against the light that would otherwise have invaded the room's only window. The floor of the room was covered with worn grey linoleum. The hospital was in the South Yorkshire town of Doncaster, after all. The walls were painted with dirty cream-lead paint, shiny, hard and thick. It was like they came in and slapped on another coat every time the bloodstains got too much. Geraldine couldn't recall if Grace was sitting there voluntarily or if she was strapped to the chair. She couldn't see her closely enough. After a time, a man wearing a white coat came into the room. He had a beard and a lit cigarette. He took up a chair opposite Grace and they began talking, voices low so Geraldine couldn't hear them. The man put out his cigarette in an ashtray that must have been on the surgical trolley next to Grace's chair. He picked up a syringe and proceeded to mainline Grace with whatever was in it. Before he had finished, Grace had slumped in the chair, her head lolling to one side. The man put his hand to Grace's cheek and asked, "Are you okay, Grace? Are you still with me?" Grace began to rouse, and as she raised her head, his hand still on her cheek, she opened her eyes and looked at the man with... what was it? Love? Yes, love. "I'm okay, thank you," said Grace. "Are you all right?" Was she flirting with him? Her face was beaming. The man lit them both a cigarette, movie star style, and for an hour, maybe more, they sat and talked and smoked until Geraldine could almost see the nicotine dripping from the lead-lined walls of the hospital room. At this time, Geraldine was just a twist of cells, swimming around each other, still wondering if they would join forces, what their potential could be. Geez, but they loved that nicotine.